it gave me an appreciation for humor. It made me think and feel what's funny. I appreciated humor in others. I wasn't a class clown or anything. I didn't try to be funny, but
When Hollywood crowned Mary Tyler Moore as America's sweetheart, her radiant smile convinced millions that she had no enemies at all. Yet before her death, Mary revealed a shocking truth, a secret almost no one could have imagined, one that shattered the flawless image she had maintained for decades. Behind the spotlight, Mary Tyler Moore admitted there were 5 actors she truly despised. Even more surprising, some of them were her own co-stars, smiling beside her on camera while quietly tearing her down behind the scenes. Were these merely small disagreements? Or did arrogance and jealousy turn harmless tensions into lasting resentment? As the pieces of the puzzle come together, you'll begin to understand exactly why these relationships became so bitter. Number 1. Dick Van Dyke. For decades, the world believed Mary Tyler Moore and Dick Van Dyke were the perfect duo, 2 icons who defined an entire golden era of American television. But beneath the polished image lay a painful truth Mary only shared in her final years. Of all her colleagues, Dick Van Dyke was the one who left the deepest wound, a story that remained hidden until now. Their conflict didn't start with ego or rivalry, it began with alcohol. In the early 1960s, long before he ever admitted it publicly, Dick Van Dyke was quietly struggling with alcoholism. Mary Tyler Moore found herself working day after day beside a man whose alcohol-fueled unpredictability could derail an entire filming schedule. Actor Glenn Corbett later recalled Mary's exact sentiment. She cared deeply for Dick, but she couldn't trust him, especially when he showed up on set with the smell of whiskey still lingering. One of the most troubling moments came in 1964. Dick arrived late to the studio, his speech slightly slurred, insisting he was only exhausted. During a demanding scene that required flawless comedic timing, he stumbled forward, knocked over a prop table, and shattered a ceramic lamp. Scripts scattered across the floor. The set fell into an uneasy silence. Crew members avoided Mary's gaze. She stared down, clenched her jaw, and quietly told the assistant director, "I can't work like this anymore." It was a rare crack in her composure, a breaking point she never shared publicly. What made the situation even more painful was Dick's emotional inconsistency. One day he was warm, charming, almost fatherly. The next, he became distant, cold, or visibly hungover. Mary despised unpredictability, and his behavior left her feeling unprotected, unsupported, and professionally humiliated. She confided to close friends that working with him felt like walking on thin ice every single morning. And yet, despite all the tension and hurt, she never fully erased him from her heart. Later in life, the two eventually mended their relationship, even speaking fondly of one another in interviews. But the underlying truth never disappeared. Of all the 5 people Mary Tyler Moore disliked, Dick Van Dyke hurt her the most precisely because he mattered the most. That wound cut deeper than any other. Number 2. James Garner. From the very first moment Mary met James Garner, she felt something she almost never experienced with fellow actors: instant irritation. Not the subtle kind that grows over time, but the sharp, immediate kind, like stepping into a room and realizing someone has already made up their mind about you. On screen, Garner projected effortless charm. Off-camera, however, Mary sensed a biting cynicism lurking beneath that polished Hollywood grin. Years later, she admitted that working with him felt like constantly dodging unseen blows. The tension surfaced early, during one of their first collaboration meetings. Mary gently suggested a minor change to a scene, just a tonal adjustment to make the moment feel more genuine. Garner leaned back, smirked, and brushed his script off the table with the back of his hand. "Sweetheart," he said coolly, "leave the thinking to the writers." Mary froze. Heat rushed to her face, but she said nothing, knowing any response would be dismissed as being overly sensitive. After the meeting, she quietly confided in a friend, "He talks to women like they're furniture." That single remark said it all. Garner's casual condescension wasn't accidental, it was a pattern, and it made every interaction with him quietly unbearable. Mary valued respect far more than praise, and from him she received neither. He made casual jokes about television actors being second-rate, ridiculed performers who rehearsed too intensely, and once told Mary outright that emotional preparation was pointless in comedy. To her, that careless attitude wasn't just dismissive, it felt like an insult to the craft itself. There was no late-life reconciliation, no heartfelt reunion, no public moment of mutual regard. They simply drifted out of each other's lives, and Mary never showed any desire to reconnect. According to Glenn Corbett, her final judgment never wavered, a gifted man, but an unbearable colleague. Number 3. Rosemary. Did Mary Tyler Moore and Rosemary ever truly coexist peacefully, or were they locked in silent combat from the very first season? Between these two women, tension simmered beneath every joke and every shared scene. Mary, who almost never spoke negatively about her peers, later admitted that Rosemary was the one person who made her feel singled out in her own workplace. From the start, Rosemary treated Mary like an intruder. She had been a star for decades, a veteran performer with a devoted fan base. So when audiences suddenly gravitated toward the young, fashionable newcomer, Rosemary's smile grew tighter and her remarks sharper. Mary once confided to a friend, "She didn't just dislike my success, she resented my existence." The most painful moment came during a rehearsal in 1963, when a reporter visited the set and casually asked about the cast's dynamic. After praising Mary's comedic timing, Rosemary turned toward him and said, loudly enough for everyone to hear, "Timing? She's learning on the job. Don't confuse youth with talent." The room shifted instantly. Mary maintained a polite smile, but later admitted the comment felt like being slapped with a microphone. Each remark afterward landed like a small, precise cut. Mary despised confrontation, so she endured the hostility in silence, channeling her discomfort into flawless performances on screen. For decades, they remained publicly cordial, even appearing together at reunions, but the warmth was carefully staged. When asked in private whether they ever healed the rift, Mary's answer was calm, brief, and unmistakably final: "We worked together. That's all." Number 4. Ted Knight. Ted Knight didn't merely frustrate Mary Tyler Moore, he exhausted her. Drained. That was the word Mary used, and it captured everything. The issue was always Ted's emotional volatility. Each time Mary stepped onto the set, she never knew which version of him she would encounter. On some days, Ted was warm and eager, almost childlike in his enthusiasm. On others, he arrived tightly wounded and defensive, convinced that everyone around him was plotting against him. Mary believed his insecurity ran so deep that it turned into a weapon, one aimed at anyone who unknowingly set it off, including her. Glenn Corbett later recalled the moment she finally opened up, "I'm tired of tiptoeing around his feelings. It's exhausting." That exhaustion came into sharp focus during one rehearsal that laid bare the fracture between them. The director offered a simple, harmless note, asking Ted to soften the delivery of a punchline. Ted froze. He shot a hard glare across the table, slammed his script down so forcefully that pages scattered across the floor, then pointed straight at Mary and shouted, "Everyone's judging me, especially her." Mary didn't respond. She didn't need to. Her silence said everything. She loathed moments like that. Ted's emotional spirals rippled through the entire cast, but Mary bore the heaviest burden. As the lead, she often had to pause her own creative process to steady his. Over time, that unspoken responsibility bred deep resentment, not toward Ted as a person, but toward a colleague whose instability turned every shooting day into a roll of the dice. Their relationship never truly healed. Even after the Mary Tyler Moore show ended, they kept a respectful distance, each quietly aware of the other's scars. Ted passed away in 1986, long before Mary ever shared her private perspective. She never criticized him publicly, but behind closed doors, she admitted one difficult truth: working beside him came at a cost she never forgot. Number 5. Richard Chamberlain. Richard Chamberlain was the kind of actor whose presence dominated a room before he ever spoke, and Mary Tyler Moore felt the weight of that dominance from the very first moment they worked together. There was no warmth, no curiosity, no effort to build camaraderie. What she encountered instead was ego, unmistakable and immediate. His confidence was razor-sharp and almost theatrical. Mary quickly sensed that he didn't see her as an equal, but as someone beneath him. Their friction began during a made-for-television drama early in her career, a time when Mary was still finding her footing, long before she became the powerhouse audiences would later admire. Chamberlain, already a rising heartthrob riding the success of Dr. Kildare, seemed to relish reminding everyone where he stood in the hierarchy. What angered Mary most was how casually he dismissed her contributions, as if they were disposable. During a scene discussion, she gently suggested adding a small emotional beat to deepen the moment. Chamberlain didn't even turn to face her. He flicked his hand as though swatting away a fly and muttered, "Your part isn't important enough to change anything." The sting came less from the words than from the way he delivered them. Mary later explained, "It wasn't what he said. It was the look in his eyes, like I didn't belong in the room." In another rehearsal, when she asked the director a simple question about blocking, Chamberlain let out an exaggerated sigh, stood up, and joked to a nearby grip, "She'll understand acting one day." No one laughed. The silence was heavy. Mary kept her composure, offering a polite smile, but inside she burned with humiliation. She was young, but she was not fragile, and she never forgot those moments. Unlike some of the other conflicts in her career, this one never mellowed with time. It hardened, remaining sharp and unresolved long after the cameras stopped rolling. Chamberlain never offered an apology, never acknowledged the tension, and never acted as if anything had gone wrong. Mary didn't look for closure. She didn't need it. She simply removed him from her life entirely. Years later, when asked whether she would ever consider working with him again, her response was immediate and unmistakable: no. Some lessons don't need to be relearned. Now that you've uncovered the 5 actors Mary Tyler more quietly carried resentment toward, which story surprised you the most? Do you believe her feelings were justified, or were they simply the lasting scars of pressure and power dynamics in early Hollywood? If you're drawn to untold truths and hidden confessions from behind the spotlight, be sure to like, subscribe, and share. Your support allows us to keep revealing the stories the industry never wanted brought into the light.